Hello and welcome, fellow awesomeologists, to Awesomeology. I'm Sue.
And I'm Ben, and in this episode, we're here with an update that's, well, almost not an update.
It is an update in the technical sense of the word.
It is definitely an update.
We said at the beginning of this whole journey that we would do a monthly update no matter what, and that's what was going to keep us accountable. We were going to be honest and transparent. And if we stall a little, we're just going to own it. And Ben, I pass it to you because one of your God-given talents is the ability to stay positive when things seem less than awesome. I rely on you very heavily for that talent. What is your take on where we're at right now?
Well, I want to be very clear and do the thing that I do from time to time, and I think is, like you said, one of maybe my talents or gifts is to, in a genuine and real way, find the positive in things, and also call myself out or be sure that I'm not just straight up sugarcoating it.
Mm.
And I'll also take full ownership of the fact that I sugarcoat some things sometimes, no doubt. And that might be for my own mental well-being or, so I can, be happy for the next 10 minutes or whatever, whatever the motivation is. Right?
Ultimately, you have to sleep at night,
Right.
too.
Yes. But also, I know when I'm sugarcoating and that keeps me up at night, right? Like, okay, let's be real. This thing isn't going as great as it is or whatever. But related to our accountability project and even that, I don't want to call it a project because projects usually have a beginning and an end. I don't think this one maybe did have a beginning. I don't think it has an end.
Right.
There might be a time when we spend less time focusing on it or talking about it because it's just become, who we are and how we work. But it's just going to kind of keep going forever, right? But I guess that's kind of the point that I'm getting at, and where I think it's easy to remain positive, even though we don't have much of an update right now. Is we've made some great progress, and part of the progress with something like this means that from time to time you might feel like you're in a bit of a valley, or certain progress to happen just takes a bit more time, and it's less obvious to see the progress that's happening. The most recent, thing that we've added to the mix is getting everybody on the team a book and having them, read this thing that's inspired this for us. And while you and I maybe don't feel much progress there because we've already read the book and been talking about it for a while, kind of book clubbing that has definitely created an opportunity to bring even more alignment amongst the team, and maybe create some inspiration to, reinforce some of the things we've already talked about as a team, breathe new energy into stuff that we're doing or working on, and maybe inspire, quicker action for stuff that's still on the list, or, stuff that we see on the horizon. So the potential in all of that by them just having a copy of the book in their hands feels like progress to me, feels like something that we should be proud of. And I guess maybe the proof will be in the pudding a certain amount down the road to know whether or not it's actually done anything right.
Right.
Or if it's just collecting dust for people.
Yes. So let me yes and you here and say, as you were talking this through, and okay, first of all, I was loath to come into recording this because we did this one time. We did it early on. We were like, we're a little bit stalled. Here's what we're going to do. I think we did a really capable episode talking about how we can manage through that. Yeah. And we walked out of that going, I never want to do that again. I never want to have that conversation again. But we know what this is it's not a project, it's change management. We are managing a full change on our team.
Yeah.
And a thing about change management is that the information and feedback loop doesn't necessarily fall on the schedule that we created for a podcast.
Right, exactly.
So the time that we need to create these different pieces and to work through different things. I think we had hoped that if we really knuckle down and we really, if we bite off these month-sized pieces, that we would be able to have this consistent feedback and be able to have something every single month to talk about.
Yeah.
And that was, I don't know, minor misstep.
Yeah.
Not thinking about the fact that the amount of time it takes to get through different pieces of the process, and that we also didn't have we didn't have a timed process
Right.
that we started with.
For sure.
So
Yeah. We didn't have some clean 12-month plan knowing what thing we should be talking about each month.
mhm.
And I think that that's part of it. Like, that makes me want to even, uh, and here I am checking right there, folks. That was the moment where I'm
That
checking
was it.
myself as
You
to
should have
whether or
seen his
not I'm
face.
sugarcoating it.
Yep.
But I don't know if I could even call it a misstep, because what we decided really early on was a very intentional decision to give an update no matter what.
hmm
And, sure, knowing what we know now, maybe that wouldn't have been our structure. It would have been more like, we'll give an update when it's time to give an update, and we anticipate that to be about monthly. And maybe what that would have meant for us was we would have given a couple of updates during one month and no updates the next month or something. So we
hmm
always had something to say. But we just chose to do it on a more regular cadence. And that means, a couple of times this year we've had to say, well, we don't have a whole lot to share, which is where
Yeah.
we're at right now.
Right.
But as you were talking, another thing that came to mind, and this isn't me just like, again, trying to, make it sound rosier than
hmm
it is, but we've had a couple of job interviews for a new person that we're bringing onto our team recently. And one of the questions that you so perfectly added to the mix of the interview questions was related to this accountable teams work that we're doing. So, I mean, even that, it's one question in a job interview
hmm
process. We've had 2 interviews to this point for a possible new member of the team. Exciting time, by the way. Um, that's huge. Like, the fact
Right.
that we're mixing in a question into an interview process to bring in somebody to our team, and like already in that process before we even hire someone, to
hmm
say like, just this is the thing we're working on and we're working towards. So, you in for that?
Right.
So I mean,
Right.
and for the record, that's not the question. Hey, you in for that? But it's a much better question than that.
How about it?
But I think
That's all it is.
but I think by asking it in the interview, sets the stage a bit, and keeps us accountable, and keeps us
Right.
front of mind for us too. So
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And we probably shouldn't talk about it. Our most recent interview. It went really, really well. That's all
Yeah.
I want to say, and then I will shut up about
yeah.
it. But I was pleasantly surprised. I was nervous about adding that, because I think everything that we have talked about in this process is contrary to sort of that usual way that things go in the business world, and um, that I was nervous adding that question and then having it be not beneficial, because everybody is thinking usual business, like business as usual stuff,
Sure.
and not thinking about specifically the question that we added to the interview was talking about giving and receiving feedback as a team.
Yeah.
That whole concept of dealing with your real issues as a team, and asking the person, if you got this feedback in front of the whole team, how would you react?
Mm.
And if every interview we had, the answer was always, well, I think that would be unfair, and I would wait until afterwards and I would speak to my supervisor, then that would give me real pause.
Right. Yeah.
As far as the value of the question.
Right.
But
Mhm.
we got really good feedback on it today.
Yeah.
And I feel I feel a little bit supported in those decisions.
Yeah.
Having heard someone else is responding well to it.
Mhm. Yeah. We're fortunate to have an HR team that supports us in our hiring and, all things HR here, right? Um, so, a bit more transparency here. The initial set of questions and everything is put together by them. And they're very good questions or perfectly appropriate questions to
Hmm.
ask a new hire. And by adding this one into the mix, it has made me kind of rethink a bit or start to think about what the process might look like next time we hire someone to, really ask instead of one or two questions that are really specific to like what's going on with the team right now or what we see on the horizon, like really crafting a complete set of interview questions that are specific to efforts we have going on right now, the kind of um, feedback we might need to hear to really have full confidence that the person that we're hiring can be bought into
Hmm.
the big kind of like team changing stuff that we have going on, which is both the day to day work and the change management type stuff, like what we have
Right.
going on here.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
mean,
And as you're talking, boy, it's a good thing we talked today.
right?
As you are talking, what's going through my mind is how we've had good success with that in an interview. What do we need to bring into coaching and
Mhm.
into meetings? And what are the things, other besides the process that we have started with this year, which is, hey, everybody, this thing, here's this thing we're doing, and we're doing that thing again, and we're going to talk about that thing in this meeting.
Mhm.
And here's the part we're going to talk about. To really turn that into a cultural discussion and a more robust sort of ongoing feedback process, and uh, by getting people bought fully into it
Mhm.
rather than the stage we're at now, which is all of this baseline stuff where we're uncovering it for people bit by bit by bit,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Something we need to remember is that every day or often though there are things that are happening that are different because of the work that we've done here. I mean,
Hmm.
I know there's team meetings where people have, well, I can think of you doing it mostly because I think, you and I are maybe the deepest in this thing, but um, you starting um statements or questions with, I want to put this out there because it's a real issue. I mean, you're like very clearly doing it. I think there's other times where other members on the team are doing the same thing, but maybe just not calling it out like that. Um, and just another recent example that's coming to mind as we're talking today. Earlier today, you confirmed with me when it might be appropriate to remove me from some email threads because there's something that I don't need to deal with or I'm not the main decision maker on. And that I think is like it's a byproduct or a result of the decision matrix. So,
Hmm.
there's things like that that I think are happening probably more often than we really recognize or give credit to because we have developed some habits now and some things are, becoming more day to day. And because of that, they just happen and go on and are not appreciated. And there's a lot more work to do. I don't want to
Right,
take away from, uh,
right.
where we're really at and that, there's a lot more work to do and everything. But I think just as important as it is to recognize that and keep working, it's important to recognize the change that probably goes unnoticed every day too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And before we jump off this little bit of a topic, and I think it's appropriate to give kudos to the whole team because one of the things that I thought was going to be a real slog was getting past this. One person on a team sees that someone else on the team isn't meeting expectations. They go to the supervisor goes to the person, and that endless thing of, now you've talked to me as the supervisor and I'm going to talk to that person, but I can't tell you I talked to this. So you're never going to know, like that whole thing, which I think I was just so accustomed to and so over. I was so over it as an employee,
mhm,
and that process. I thought that was going to be a really, really hard thing to break.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
knocking on wood,
Yeah.
I think the team actually has embraced that.
Yeah.
And has gotten to the point where they feel really comfortable with just dealing directly with things, and bringing us in as appropriate to bring us in and bringing things up in meetings.
Yeah.
So, and kudos to them. I think that
For sure.
could have been a tough nut. I mean, I had plenty of motivation to make that work well because I don't like getting involved in that stuff.
Yeah.
As my boss, it might be not appropriate to have told you that, but I want those things solved.
Right.
I just have always hated that process, that anonymous process of now I have to lie about everything because I can't tell you who the person is that said the thing and I can't tell them and everybody hates everything.
Right. Yeah.
Because we're living in some weird secret thing
Yeah.
where everybody knows you're not doing it.
Right.
So just do it.
Yeah. Right. And we're on a small team. So like it's impossible to not know who we're talking about.
Right.
Or darn near impossible.
Right. So, yeah. So kudos to them.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, this is definitely not the first time we as a team have hit a road bump on a project. And I know that because it's written right here. It's not even the first time for this process. So what are the strategies we're going to use to get unstuck? You don't even think we're stuck, though. So I don't know if I can even ask you this question in good faith.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. So episode over. Thanks for listening.
Okay, bye.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, well, let's reflect a little bit on what we talked about in the first part where, okay, this is 2 episodes now where we've had to kind of come into it like a little mopey, like, oh man.
Sorry, you guys.
No update, everybody. See ya. And we've maybe recognized that maybe part of it was, I don't know, poor planning or maybe not having the foresight to know like, hey, maybe not everything's going to line up perfectly that we're going to have something to talk about every month, right? I'll admit the first delay, I think it was our February episode, that was just straight up like, oops, lost track of time, didn't do anything. Let's own that thing. This one feels different to me. Like I really do genuinely feel like there has been some progress and a lot of potential in the bit of progress that has happened. So like I feel a lot better about it. But there's no denying that like our feelings as we came into this episode, like we feel like we could have done more or should have done more in the last 30 days. So anyway, here we are. I think this probably is something I said back in February, doing what we're doing right now, recognizing that we're stuck, or recognizing, hey, we've lost some traction on this thing, aren't as far as we want. Let's just call it out. Let's own it. It's kind of like a mini version of a real issue,
Right.
It's maybe not an actual team issue that we're dealing with right now, but it's something that you just got to call out and recognize. That's absolutely the first step. Don't ignore it or BS your way through it. So
yeah,
that's the first step, and a great strategy, I think, is owning it and getting through it.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned you referred to it as a mini issue. I think if we really dissect that, we've tried to make it clear. And again, progress has been made. We continue to work on it. Conversations need to continue. We've tried to make it clear that this is a team initiative, right? And maybe a thing that is stuck is that we're still at this point in the process where even though we have said to the whole team, and this is not me blaming the team, do not take it that way.
Yeah.
But even though we've said to the whole team, we want everyone bought in, this is a whole team accountability thing, we're all doing this together, we need to keep it moving together, we are still in this place where they're waiting for the leaders to tell them the thing.
Yep, right.
And we still haven't created that completely fluid agreement where, hey, if we as the leaders aren't moving a thing forward, speak up.
Right. Yeah.
Ask us what's happening.
Yeah.
And if we have to say, oh, cripes, well, we have to schedule a thing, but I have 0 time to do that thing. Could you do it? Then the whole team benefits from it.
Right.
Again, not me blaming the team.
Yep.
Because also you and I can schedule things because we schedule the heck out of things. But a thing to think about, like how do we break that habit? Especially, no shade, no tea, no shade on our team. But it is obvious when people bring things up, when we start talking about those real issues, it is, I think, I can hear it in the tone of anyone on our team. If they bring something up and they're like, okay, guys, let's get this together. Like, I can hear that tone.
Yeah.
So if they're feeling that way, and they might be right, they probably are right.
Right.
Then let's not wait until you're feeling that way. Let's move it forward.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait until you're frustrated.
Yeah.
Ask a question before you get frustrated.
Right. Yeah.
Prompt a thing. Everyone here can lead that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. And I think that there's, people on our team that own certain, aspects of what the team's accountable for, or, it's very specific to their job. And that's when like the confidence is super high to say that in a meeting, right? Like, hey, can we just like get this thing together, figure it out and move along, and that's maybe another, I guess we're talking about strategies to get unstuck or, opportunities for progress for us here. I mean, I think that's a really clear next opportunity for us as part of this. I don't know when next is, but it's for this whole thing, this accountable team thing, to be something that everyone on the team feels they own enough of to ask that question. Like a designer would ask for some content that they need to be able to design the thing that they're designing and do it in a very clear and real way, right? So that buy-in from the team, that like true ownership, is something that we talked about a while ago, that's something we need to get the team more involved in. Clearly we've got some work to do there.
Yeah, well, and that was the point of the book, of getting everyone reading the book and moving on from there. But I think that it's a good example of that shared fate, that conversation around, if someone fails, does the team succeed? Or, where's the responsibility, the accountability for the team to bring that, help move that person along as best they can, or that person, that project, that process, and make sure that as much as possible, everything can succeed.
Right.
Quote unquote.
Yeah.
Everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And knowing the team that we have, like them asking the question to get something unstuck like that, especially, again, going back to like the designer example, like usually one of the first offers is, what can I do to help? Right. And it's less like, you get that thing done so that I can do my job. It's more like, how can I help you? And, I think that's something that we will see eventually as the buy-in grows and the engagement with this grows, is the next time, Stuck is hiding around the corner, ready to jump out and scare the crap out of us, one of our teammates is going to say, hey, what can I do to help move that thing along? And I like how, the book, getting everybody a book is just such an obvious step in this whole thing. But I kind of like this book club sort of thing that we've got going on right now. We're reading another book as a team and breaking it up in sections, and the inclusive language handbook, by the way, so far so awesome. So we'll probably recommend that and probably talk about that one on a podcast episode eventually. But anyway, all that to say, I just like how getting them reading the same stuff we've read and seeing the same things just feels like such an obvious step to get us moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's next steps.
Yeah.
We do have, it's all over with the screaming. We have, but to schedule it. We've got some discussion questions. We have a plan.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, I want to cut myself off before I dive into, here's all the good reasons that stuff didn't happen. And I have lots and lots of them.
Yeah.
And
I've got a couple myself, but they're not helpful to anyone.
Right. Right. They're all, listeners are just going to have to trust us that we're not slacking.
You're welcome, listener. You don't need to hear all that.
Yeah. Yes. This is, let us give you another 20 minutes back in your day.
Right.
Of not hearing our excuses. Anything else to add before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
appreciate the real transparent conversation like we said we would.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hey, pat on the back, man.
Yeah.
We did the thing. And we appreciate you, listener, for joining us on our journey. Please keep coming back and hearing more, even if it is more of this, especially if it's more of this. I think this is good for people.
I agree.
You can also follow us on social media or get in touch with us at our website, exclamationqso.com.
Thanks, friends, for tuning in. Be awesome. See you next time.
The Awesomeology Podcast is a production of Exclamation Services. Thanks to Nick Mulliver for sound production and Kylie Ganther for our cover artwork.
Executive producers are me, Ben Bauer, and my friend Suzanne Campbell.